Well, it's just a little before 6 in the morning, and it's time for our little weekend ride, and that means, of course, it's raining out. I still have my my street tires on, so before I go on this little jaunt, it'll be time to get the knobbies back on. And the knobbies are on, we're ready to go. I'm gonna head over to Joe's and see if he's actually gonna come out and play today.
I'm following you, Bill.
And it was no surprise that Joe wasn't coming out to play because it was raining, and if you're gonna ride with the awesome players, you will of course ride in the rain. So we headed north out of Montreal and had a quick stop to put some Loctite on Chris's mirrors. And if you're gonna touch someone else's knobs, wear your gloves. And then we put the tools away. Chris is threatening this year that he will actually bring some tools. And we decided to check out some couple of spots we had some GPS points for, a couple of sand pits, kind of northwest of the city. And on the way we found some nice twisty roads. We came to the first sand pit, and last time we drove by here it was open. Now it seemed to be posted. But a little farther down, we did see there was an entrance to a sand pit that seemed kind of connected to it. So we hung a Yui and had a little meeting and decided to check it out. This area wasn't posted, so we headed in to take a little look-see. And then as we got over closer to the big sand pit, we could see that someone had piled up a big berm, and it would seem quite obvious that they didn't want people going in there, so we decided to head over to another sand pit that we had the GPS coordinates for. But this was too bad because a couple of months before this was open to the public. And you know, if you got the right gear, riding in the rain's not that bad. You're nice and warm and you're toasty, and the season's too short not to ride when it's raining. But if you are going to ride in the rain, especially on knobbies, yeah, it does make a little sense to kind of take it a little easier on those curves. And eventually we got to where the GPS told us we should turn for the sand pit, and we headed down a little dirt road, and then it opened up into this big, beautiful sand pit. So we started ripping around. It was a different kind of sand, and even though it was wet, usually with hard packed sand when it's wet you have good traction. Here, even with a pretty good Midas E09 on the back, I was having quite a bit of trouble climbing these hills. I saw Chris do this, and he kind of spun it up the other side. And if an HP2 has trouble climbing the hill, odds are your 800 might have a little trouble. And on this one I just barely made it. Chris didn't bring his camera on this day, so it was just from my point of view. Then I got a little tired and decided to take a little nap. Now if you want to get a little bit of exercise, just pick up the old 800 a few times. Here I'm using the old reverse method that everybody seems to recommend. And then we were out playing around again, and if you're gonna fall down once, you might as well fall down twice. These are the double take mirrors. They're great, don't break when you fall over, easy to adjust. Then I went down into this kind of bowl-shaped hole. It was quite steep, and when I chopped the gas, the rear tire locked and it stalled. And then I knew there was no way I was getting out of here from a standing start, but I thought I'd give it a try, and ended up digging a trench. And this was steep, so I knew there was no going up. When your buddy shows up and he looks at the situation, and the first thing he does is decide this is one of those times when we better take our helmets off and get comfy because it's going to take a while. And this took about 15 minutes with the two of us. Then we continued riding around, and once again it was down on the ground. The nice thing about the sand, though, is that nothing really bad happens to you or the bike, especially at the kind of speeds I go.
These are pretty big corrections. Because I wanted to follow you. But it just, it would not turn, and I gotta keep the weight off the front, like, major.
Well, those are all the excuses I could think of, so then I decided to take a break and just get some shots at Chris on the HP2, who wasn't having any trouble at all. And then when we left the sand pit, kind of heading west, and there's a nice road that goes for quite a while. It's nice and fun, a little greasy that day. And then we came upon a hydro line, and hydro lines are one of our best sources of trails, so we kind of scouted along looking for some sort of entrance into the hydro line. This one was marked private. So we kept on heading west, and eventually we did come upon some sort of an entrance to what looked kind of like a little trail network, and as usual we always miss it and have to turn around and go back. Give the old GoPro lens a quick wipe in case anything interesting happens. Now this trail started off looking real promising. 2 tracks, nice little ATV trail, and then I could see Chris sliding around up in front of me, and then we turned kind of the first corner, and that's when it started to look pretty mucky. And then when we got into the forest itself, it started to look real mucky. Then it started to look more like a lake. So we chewed our way in there for the first 100 meters or so. And then up ahead it looked like there was some serious water. So I pulled up beside Chris to have a little powwow, and we kind of decided that it might be a good idea if someone went up ahead and took a look.
Should we check it first?
So Chris went up to take a peek.
Smell?
And Chris kind of stuck down the right-hand side here, and it didn't look too bad. So he came back and said, yeah, it looks good. And then mysteriously he headed off and went down the left side. Now I think it's worth looking at that again in normal speed. Now when you see the tail light of an HP2 disappear, you know it's pretty deep. Then I did something smart. I actually decided that I'll take this little piece of rope I've been carrying around for quite a while with me, and then maybe I won't actually have to get into the mud and the swamp to get Chris's bike out. I can just throw him a rope or hook the rope on and then pull from the comfort of dry land. Now this was the first time we'd ever used this rope. It now has an official nickname. It's called the douche rope. So you can imagine if the rope is called the douche rope, you can kind of guess what the name of the guy on the other end of the rope is. Chris decided to keep the bike running because the exhaust was actually filling up with water. And we clipped on the douche rope onto the grab bars on the front of the HP2. And then I decided to give it a pull with my meager 225 pounds.
Okay.
But that HP2 was not budging an inch.
Forget it.
So it was time to wade in and have a look.
There's a log right here. Or something, anyway. How do we lift it?
That's when we found out that it was hung up on some sort of a log or a root or something. You can see how deep it is. The rear of the seat was almost in the water there. We had to lift it up a good 1.5 feet to get it over that obstacle.
Okay. One more.
A little pull on the front wheel to get the bike straight. And then, with just a gentle tug on the douche rope, and Chris was out of there. I decided to stay to the right, yeah, on the right hand side the water was never really more than about a foot deep max, so no drama. And then the trail kind of opened up into this greasy logging road, and we followed that out. It took us out to the hydro line, and the hydro line actually ended after a couple of 100 meters. It was fenced off, so we got back out on some dirt roads and started heading home. And after a little highway blast in the rain, we were home by noon.